Hello! Welcome to English for Shared. Here, you learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's go!
The resurrection of Jesus Christ. The story of Jesus Christ's resurrection is much more than an ancient tale. It is a story of hope that spans centuries, capable of touching anyone's heart. Imagine the sadness and despair of those who loved Jesus, watching him arrested, tried, and crucified. The pain seemed unbearable, and all seemed lost. But even in the deepest darkness, something extraordinary was about to happen. The empty tomb is a symbol of life's victory over death. It's a sign that nothing is impossible when one trusts in God. Every detail of the resurrection carries a message of love, forgiveness, and rebirth. It's as if the whole world stopped for a moment and an infinite light illuminated the hearts of all who believe. It's a story that reminds us that even in the most difficult times, there is always hope. This story also invites us to reflect on our own lives. How often do we feel defeated, hopeless, or discouraged in the face of difficulties? Jesus' resurrection shows us that even when all seems lost, there is a new chance to begin again. It's an invitation to believe, trust, and move forward with courage, knowing that God's love is greater than any pain or obstacle. The Last Supper and the arrest of Jesus. That night, Jesus gathered his disciples in a quiet, welcoming place for the Last Supper. Candles gently illuminated the room as he shared bread and wine, speaking of love, forgiveness, and unity. Each word seemed to carry weight, and at the same time, a promise of hope. He knew what was coming, but he didn't hesitate to comfort those who followed him, even without fully understanding what would happen. As they shared bread, Jesus spoke of his imminent sacrifice. He explained that his death would not be the end, but a new beginning for everyone. The disciples listened attentively, feeling a mixture of fear and awe. The atmosphere was charged with emotion. Every gesture, every look seemed to anticipate the moment that would change their lives forever. Among them, Judas stood silently, bearing the weight of betrayal. He had already made his deal with the religious leaders, and his heart was torn between greed and fear. At that moment, the shadow of betrayal loomed over the group, even if the others were not yet aware of the approaching danger. After supper, Jesus went out to pray in the Garden of Gethsemane. He knelt, asking the Father for strength and courage, feeling the human anguish in the face of the suffering that lay ahead. The disciples, tired and sleepy, could not stay awake, demonstrating human frailty in the face of pain and fear. Shortly thereafter, soldiers arrived in the garden, led by Judas. He approached Jesus and kissed him, signaling to the soldiers who they should arrest. The scene was silent and shocking. Jesus was led away under the surprised and desperate gazes of his friends. The disciples' hearts sank, and sadness overcame each of them, unaware that this moment would pave the way for the greatest miracle in history: the crucifixion and death. Jesus was taken to stand trial before the authorities, unjustly accused and condemned to crucifixion. He faced insults, mockery, and contempt, but he never lost the serenity and kindness in his gaze. Each step he took toward Golgotha seemed to carry the weight of all human suffering, as if he were taking on our pain to teach us about love and forgiveness. On the way up the hill, Jesus stumbled, exhausted, carrying the heavy cross. The crowd watched, some with sadness, others with indifference. Simon of Cyrene was called to help him, and even in this small gesture, humanity mingled with grief and solidarity. The scene was somber, but Jesus' every step was imbued with courage and determination. Arriving at Golgotha, he was nailed to the cross. The pain was intense, and the sky seemed to darken above everyone. People wept and cried out for justice, while some mocked and questioned. The cross was not only an instrument of suffering, but also the symbol of the greatest act of love the world has ever known. For hours, Jesus remained on the cross, forgiving those who hurt him and offering hope to those who suffered. He not only endured physical pain, but also carried the weight of humanity's sins and failings. In the final moment, he gave up his spirit, and the earth trembled, as if creation itself bore witness to the greatness of that sacrifice. His body was removed from the cross and carefully placed in a borrowed tomb, covered by a large stone. The disciples and followers were devastated, plunged into sadness and doubt. Death seemed to have won, and darkness seemed to dominate. But the silence of the tomb held a secret that would forever change the history of humanity. The promise that life always conquers death. The silence of the grave. After the crucifixion, Jesus' tomb remained closed, shrouded in silence and sadness. His disciples and followers were confused and discouraged, unable to comprehend what had happened. Each tried to cope with the grief in their own way, but the sense of loss seemed overwhelming. It was as if hope had been buried along with him. In the days that followed, fear and doubt gripped their hearts. Unanswered questions echoed in the disciples' minds. Is it all over? How will we go on without him? The sadness was profound, and many wondered if their sacrifice had been in vain. Each dawn seemed to reinforce the sense of despair and helplessness. While the world seemed plunged into mourning, a small spark of hope began to emerge in those who still remembered Jesus' words. He had promised he would rise again, but the lifeless body in the tomb seemed to contradict his words. Doubt and faith intertwined, creating a silent, almost unbearable tension. In the midst of the silence, some women decided to visit the tomb, carrying spices to anoint Jesus' body. They had no idea they were about to witness something that would change everything. Each step toward the stone sealing the tomb carried anxiety, fear, and expectation, as if the very air were electrified by the approaching miracle. The tomb, which seemed to be the ultimate symbol of death, was about to reveal the greatest secret in human history. That profound silence would be broken, and pain and sadness would give way to joy and hope. It was the prelude to something no one could fully imagine, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The morning of the resurrection. On the morning of the third day, the sky began to light up differently. The wind seemed to whisper a message of life, and the women approached the tomb with their hearts racing. To their amazement, the large stone sealing the entrance had been rolled away. The tomb was empty, and a soft glow emanated from within, as if light itself had chosen to inhabit that place. An angel appeared before them, his presence calm and majestic. His words echoed in the stillness. "He is not here. He is risen." Surprise and joy filled their hearts, replacing fear and doubt. They ran, excited, to tell the disciples, feeling each step as if the ground, too, celebrated the victory of life over death. The world seemed different in that moment. Everything seemed to shine with new hope, and the sadness of the past few days began to dissipate. The news spread quickly, piercing through fear and disbelief. Those who had wept and despaired now found themselves facing the miracle that would forever change the history of humanity. The empty tomb wasn't just a physical space. It was a symbol of a promise fulfilled. Death had been conquered, and hope was reborn in every heart. Faith, once wavering, found strength and courage again, proving that love and life are greater than any pain. Jesus' resurrection wasn't just a return to life. It was the affirmation that nothing is impossible when one trusts in God. It was the beginning of a new era filled with hope, faith, and courage. Every disciple who heard the news would feel life pulse within them in a renewed way. The encounter with the disciples. After his resurrection, Jesus appeared to his disciples, bringing joy and peace that surpassed all understanding. He showed them his nail-marked hands and feet, and their hearts filled with emotion as they recognized their living master. Disbelief gave way to tears of joy and a faith that grew even stronger. Jesus spoke to them, explaining that everything that had happened was part of God's plan. He taught them again, preparing them to spread his message of love, forgiveness, and salvation. His every word touched their hearts deeply, inspiring courage to face any fear or obstacle. Jesus' presence brought comfort and strength. He encouraged them to move forward, reminding them that death did not have the final word. The joy and peace he conveyed were so intense that no fear could survive his presence. The disciples felt renewed, ready to fulfill their mission with confidence and faith. The encounter with the resurrected Master showed that miracles exist and that life can always conquer death. Hope and faith became inseparable, and each disciple understood that the resurrection was an invitation to live with courage and love, even in the face of difficulties. The story of Jesus' resurrection forever transformed those who witnessed it. It is an eternal reminder that even in the darkest moments, the light of God's life and love can shine brightly, renewing hearts, inspiring faith, and opening paths of hope for us all. The resurrection of Jesus Christ is the greatest proof that life always conquers death, and hope can always be reborn. It is a story of love, faith, and courage that reminds us that even in the most difficult times, there is always a chance for a new beginning. It inspires us to trust in God, to forgive, and to live joyfully, even in the face of adversity. More than a historical event, the resurrection is an invitation for each of us to renew our faith and believe that miracles are possible. It is a message of courage, teaching us that darkness does not have the final word, and that the light of life and God's love always triumphs. May this story touch your heart, renew your hope, and inspire you to live each day with faith, courage, and love, remembering that just as Jesus conquered death, we can all overcome our challenges and be reborn into a life full of meaning.